Yeah, it's like that overall heading.
Amazing.
Sponsor for the community.
Tēnā koutou katoa, welcome to this meeting of the Central Otago District Council. Great to have you all here. Welcome to members of the press who are in attendance. We will begin with karakia, led by our Deputy Mayor, Neil Gillespie today.
Nā mihi o te rā, ki te whānā, e hui nei, kia tātou rangamari, kia whaka tapu tātou, mei nā mea, e whakapana ana tātou, ame e hui e taki, which is greetings of the day to the whānau gathered here. Let peace be with us, and may we respect each other in what we believe.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you, Neil. We have no apologies today, which I think is remarkable given the amount of illness that's in the community. So thank you all for being here. We have no public forum. Confirmation of the minutes of 31st of May. Someone was in attendance, wish to move those. Thank you, Tamer. Seconded, Lindley. All those in favour? Aye. Carried. Thank you. Declarations of interest on page 35, and if there was ever a time I wouldn't need to remind councillors about things such as ensuring you declare all your conflicts, it would be following certain members of parliament and certain race relations conciliators. So I probably don't need to say much more than that, but I think if anything, you know, making sure that you're up to date with all of those things is very important. It moves us to our first paper you'll find on page 21, which is the adoption of the 2023-2024. Sorry, here was me. I knew I would get that wrong. We're actually moving one up. We have to do the liability management policy report on page 282 before such time as we go to the annual plan. It's just a matter of process that we have to make sure the horse is before the cart. Welcome, Saskia and Susan.
Good morning, councillors. Take this paper as read. It's a pretty straightforward paper. What happened last year is we were very proactive and acted on Department of Internal Affairs advice around locking in our debt. So essentially they said to councils with the transition at that time being 1st of July 2024 is not to enter into any debt arrangements beyond that date. So essentially what changes we then made to our liability management policy have impacted our ability to secure a good rate. So essentially all our debt is on floating. All councils that had passed this policy have since reversed their decisions, and DIA's come out and said, hey, you don't need to follow that. So basically we're just bringing this back in line with where it was beforehand by making the minor changes in the policy that have been through the Audit and Risk Committee. Essentially we'll be able to get better rates for our debt, which is primarily of that anti-all, so there's a 3 water debt of 20 million, and save our ratepayers some money. So hand it over to any questions of Susan and I.
Any questions, team? Somebody like to move it? Thank you, Nigel. Seconded, Tamer. Any further discussion? All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Now we'll take ourselves to the adoption of the annual plan on, say, page 21. Same team at the bottom end of the table. All yours.
We'll take this recorded as well. The difference between what we've been out for consultation with at 10.2% rates rise across average rate rise across the district, and the 11.2 is the water compliance monitoring that we signed off in the council meeting. So that was $310,000 in cost. So we have managed to find a few bits and pieces of savings to make sure that there wasn't just totally 1% increase on rates. But we haven't been able to find it actually any more. Pretty tight.
Just following on from that, comments from the Mayor on this one is that the 11.2% rates rise that proposed is probably something none of us around this table, certainly in years gone by, recent years gone by, will have envisaged. You look back at the LTP, which is when we make the big budgetary and decisions and the big service level decisions from 2 years ago, this was always going to be a bump in the road year. It was going to be 7.2% rates rise, so it was well beyond what we've done in the past. And unfortunately, we've hit a perfect storm where we've had depreciation increased because our assets have increased significantly in value. Like other households, our insurance rates have gone up. We've got new water compliance and our drinking water standards that have come through that were unexpected. Most of these changes have on insurance costs have gone up like everyone else, and general inflation. You know, we're operating in a, when we put down that 7.2% rise back into 2021, we were in a 2% inflation environment. We're now in a 7% inflation environment, and that's had its effect. So we could have looked at what we were going to cut in order to reduce that 11.2%. That would have involved cutting services because we couldn't have cut any of the costs that have been imposed on us. And I've already indicated to councillors that, and without great resistance, that in the LTP next year, if those increases are going to continue, we'll have to have a conversation with the community about what services we may have to look at not providing, reducing, or whatever. This isn't a council that's going to hide realities through things such as not depreciating assets or creating bow waves for future generations. There's been too much of that gone on in local government. So that's the only comments I wish to make on this. Is there any questions from councillors? Neil?
Oh, I haven't really got a question as much as an observation, I suppose, is that if you look at further what you've said with what we've forecast in the LTP and where we are now and the reasons why, I'm actually kind of surprised that other councils aren't having the same pressures. And I wonder what it is that they're doing, or dare I say not doing. That's making a difference. The key thing to me is that we have communicated pretty clearly to our community what's happening and the reasons why, and we had the submissions that came in. And as is the norm, no one has told us what to stop doing. And we could have thrown some of the stuff out and said, we're not going to fund this, not going to do that. But we've learned from the past that all that's doing is actually just putting that to the next year or to the next generation or whatever. And the reality is that these are the costs that need to be provided for to provide the services that our community hasn't told us that they don't want. And until that happens, I think then we're doing the right thing. So yeah, disappointing to see those sort of numbers, but you know, with the growth, it does have an impact as well in terms of the new people who are here. This year will be different as well because of the changes in valuations and what that does, and how things will skew because of that. But if you look at what we've got as a result, you know, things driving us the depreciation of a you know, state-of-the-art water supply, a major upgrade to wastewater. Those things never were going to come cheap. So and with what else is happening, I've dropped the era. So you know, it's not a nice thing to be feeling that you're doing to your community, but what else do you do? And there's a whole lot of stuff that we're still not doing. We're not doing a lot in social housing. We're not doing a lot in some of that community and other lot of social space that we could be doing, that some people are calling for us to do. I'm not sure who they expect to pay for that, because it's going to be them. So yeah, I think we as a council and the staff in particular work really hard to bring it together, and it is what it is.
I think the other thing just to point out is that we do have the waste contract changes in the green waste coming into the central plan, and that will affect. There may be some room for a reduction in the green waste fees at the transfer station, councillors so wish. At the moment, it's sitting in the LT and the plan at $415. We could afford to drop that to $395, which reflects the reduction in the ET's charges, and is in line with what the LDC is doing. Also, you may not wish to, because we usually need a year to understand what behaviour changes are going to happen through this process. So
Thank you for reminding me, Susan, because in that realm too, currently under the fees and charges that we have in front of us, is the extra red wheelie bin being $282.40, I think it was. We'd made a resolution late last year, I think, where it was going to be 300, but that 300 was based on the actual cost. So you can either say we resolved to make it 300 or we resolved to go with the actual cost. It is down with the actual cost. The emissions trading scheme cost is being lessened. I think that's the right wording.
Yep.
Because the gas capture plant at Victoria Flat has had a year's work where it's able to show what it's capturing. So what the landfill is costing us is now slightly less. We have it down at 282. We agreed to have it as the real price unless anybody feels inclined to pump it up to the 300 we agreed to based on, I'm not sure what. Now's the time to speak because we would have to amend that here. But I think the same logic should probably apply to the green waste if we are trying to put those charges as they actually are. And there has been that reduction, because that reduction has come at significant cost to the ratepayer putting that gas capture plant in. So I take your point that it would be nice, but if we do find that there's aberrations of habit changing, that will come through.
Eventually,
Yeah. So, okay, so everyone's comfortable with that. So there will be a change in the fees and charges and that'll be noted by Wayne. Have you got that in front of you?
Keeping it to, no,
We're keeping the red one, so you don't have to worry about that. We're changing the green, dumping it at the waste station cost.
transfer station.
Transfer station.
300.
just looking to see where that is in the fees and charges.
Through the chair, page 214, I think it is. Links on the transfer station facilities for Alexander and Cromwell, the general results quite a lot.
We'll just give Wayne a moment to catch up before we continue discussion, because there will be a little list. The finance oversight group picked up a couple of.
So that's been moved.
That'll go in the general amendments.
Yeah.
So it's already in the agenda, isn't it? Showing waste per tonne 415.
Yep.
Yeah.
And green waste by tonne 75.
Saying that 415 will come down to 395.
395. That's what you were saying, wasn't you, Bishop?
Yep.
Yeah.
And the red bin will stay as it is in the fees and charges at the moment.
Which is 283 or something, I read somewhere.
Something like that, 284, something slightly less than what we'd originally budgeted. Okay. We got all that. So, so the finance oversight group picked up a couple of finickety things, as is one of the members' habits, or 2 or 3 of the members' habits. So Wayne's going to pop them up. So there will be a change to the recommendations, because it will be to adopt the report, including amendments, and Wayne will put up shortly what those amendments are. They're mostly grammatical. Just while Wayne's dealing with that, any other questions of Susan and Saskia on this too? Lindley.
Development contributions, new connection, the only chance I the 2,917 hours, so 7,000 comments, 3,000.
It's probably not to be equivalent to that as well. Over. So
Oh, okay.
the high cost of development that only.
Yeah, it'll reflect the capital program. Yeah.
Okay.
So you see there, Lindley, where Alexander implied for the water supply is quite a bit higher, because that is taking into account the new connections joining that new scheme. And I'm presuming Omaka will know for what's coming.
Yeah.
Getting ahead of it, because we do know that there's going to have to be significant work there.
Just through the chair, just talking to Wayne about the changes to the document. They are grammatical changes. So what I suggested to Wayne is that we talk about them and we just change the resolution to the agreed amendments.
Yeah.
I think we're happy with those little ones that I have near term is there's inconsistencies with Naitahu and Kaitahu in the document. The oversight committee requested us just to be consistent, so we will do that. So what's the difference?
There really isn't a set preference. Kaitahu, local iwi generally use the K, but in any discussions I've had with them, they've gone, look, we're not too troubled, and Naitahu is what's now recognised.
Yeah.
I think Naitahu is probably what's more recognised. I don't really have a preference, but I think I just want consistency.
Yep.
I should have perhaps made a phone call and checked for somebody far greater authority on that than me, but
If you were being helpful,
Mhm.
you'd use Naitahu and put in brackets Kaitahu, or somewhere make an observation about it.
why don't we do that?
So, and actually help that education process because,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
What did you?
Next one, page 83, where we talk about the rates increase affordability. We've got a bit of a complicated, well, not a long explanation around explaining that basically when the district grows, the rates are.
I'll just pause here, Saskia, maybe we can use the agenda page.
Oh, sorry, miss, apologies.
108.
108.
Thank you.
Really? So what the oversight committee has requested was just a plain English that, and just to make it a bit simple, so we will do
So
that.
we suggested something like this reflects the growth of rateable properties within the district.
what page is it again, sorry?
It's page 108 of the agenda, and it's the paragraph between the two tables. And my reading of it was, as a layperson, you could read that as saying there's some difference between existing ratepayers and new ratepayers. But what we're trying to reflect is that the more people that we have come into the district, the more people the overall cost is divided by. So growth is actually a reducing factor on your overall rates.
That's a good statement.
Yeah, but the word growth is the wrong one to use because it's the growth in the rateable properties. What about, there are more rateable properties than there was? Yeah, it's that simple.
There's more rateable properties to pay the overall cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because growth means too many things.
Yeah.
We know what it means. So there's more properties.
Because of growth.
Yeah, you could, if you want to use the word growth, you could, yes.
I'm not sure I'd want to use the word growth.
Yes, quite right.
And another change requested by the oversight group was throughout the financial statements. So for example, on page 113 of your agenda, you'll see right at the top of the table there, it has 000, and we have that throughout our tables, but at times it doesn't make sense. Because when you read down some of them, at one point it looked like we spent 36 million on a vehicle, but we didn't. So what we just need, so we'll change that to make sure that the numbers are kept. So they, and then the oversight committee had a few questions on fees and charges. Do you want to go through those?
Yes.
So fees and charges, there was a query on page 189 of the agenda. So that the team had queried the reduction for the senior soccer fees and charges. So we had reduced that by 1,500 last year to 900 this year. So what that was about, and thank you, David, he got a memory on this one, is that council had previously questioned why there was such a difference between senior soccer and senior rugby. Senior rugby paying, of course, less. And when we looked into it, we couldn't see what the justification was, just a historic thing. So what we have proposed with this fees and charges to bring senior soccer and senior rugby in line with each other, so they pay the same fee. And just to note, when the trusts do look, is that there's an additional fee for bins for waste if it's on a user pays basis. So that answers one of the questions. And page 202 of the agenda, there was a question under the title of display. You'll see that for this fees and charges, we're proposing no charges there. So this is in relation to our eyesights. What we previously used to do is allow commercial businesses to display their posters on the walls and the like. We have now moved on to digital advertising only, and this includes sites. So effectively, the display fees are no longer valid because we don't have them, and it's all kept under the digital fees, which have been reduced slightly to reflect that we only manage two eyesights. So that would have made anything else again. Anything else from the finance website group?
I think that covered everything off. Anything else, team? Wayne, have you got those?
Yeah.
Little tweaks? So what will be happening is when B gets moved, adopts the annual plan, blah, blah, and we'll just have at the end of B with agreed amendments. These are there we are, thank you. Oh, yes, an approval from Department of Internal Affairs. Is that internal or infernal? Internal affairs.
It should be just a rubber stamping exercise, but with the three waters legislation, we're required to put everything through the DIA.
And then there was also just on legal advice, a slight recommendation to page 10A. We had, in your agenda resolves to speak penalties. The lawyer said we need to change that to add. So just a wording.
$300, thank you very much. And the
Right,
rest,
yeah, okay, well, if that's,
So those other changes you talked about at the start with the red bin and,
The red bin wasn't changing.
yes, well, the fees and charges that are in this report, the red bin is,
Staying the same.
Same.
oh, sorry, yeah, that's the 300 that was in a previous resolution, yep. So I think about it. My apologies.
So they're changing green waste to come down to $395.
Put the transfer station in there.
At transfer station.
Yeah, and that's per tonne, because if you take a carload, bootload, it's free. That's still the case, isn't it? Seems at odds, but bulk stuff you pay for, weed loads. We covered.
We've introduced a fee for that.
Yeah.
Well,
$5, isn't it?
well, hang on a moment then.
Otherwise, it'll be
Now.
Only because I just was looking at it and I thought, oh, okay. Can I suggest then, I'm on page 214 of the agenda, that I'm assuming in the final document where it says green waste deposit and green waste area now got NA, put a line through it. It's not applicable, it just shouldn't be there anymore. Yeah, anything that's no longer a charge should be a delete, gone, because it's not appropriate anymore. So on page 214. If it's not applicable, then it should have a line through it, not be in the thing going forward. It's good to show us that it's no longer being charged. You can see the rabbit hole I just went down going, it's free.
Yeah.
There's no charge. No.
so sorry, I'm just coming up to speed. People can take a car over since.
Yeah, they can, but it's now covered by up further. Transfer station with wave facilities, I've done a problem, green waste charge.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, that's where you pay for it there.
Yeah, right, so agree, take it out.
It's just consistent with the legal service through the green waste. Treatments.
If we do something like Neil suggested, of taking those out because they are actually no longer applicable, is there any issue with that, with making such a late change? I know that some things have been scrutinised and others don't. That doesn't need to be scrutinised.
No, so what we need to do when we've got the fees and charges published for the public, we can take the comparison issues for the NP as such. But then when we're actually distributing the fees and charges, we don't need to edit that.
Nothing. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant, thank you. So we've got those up, Wayne, I think the lunch.
There's a change required, I think. It's not green waste at the transfer station, it's general waste, isn't it?
No, it's green.
Come down to 395. Well, I'm reading something wrong then. It
75.
says 75.
415, 395.
Yeah, that's general waste.
It's general.
Oh.
Talking to the fees and charges I'm looking at,
Oh, yeah.
214.
415.
General waste by the tonne is showing us 415 and green waste is 75.
Yeah.
Yes, it will be general waste.
Talk about
That's
the
what's
right to
going
waste
to
here?
landfill.
Sorry, yes, it is.
Yeah, thank you, Neil.
And it's not 390.
No, it's going to come down. It's not
It's gonna
going
come
to.
down.
It's currently showing
Yeah,
was
it's just
345, was going to be
315,
415, and now it's going to be 395.
Yeah, well spotted. Charge me general waste. Right,
Okay.
brilliant, well done. I think the last two, they were just for our, not the last two, 189 and 282 were just there for our, education. They don't need to be in this.
Okay.
So when we say at B with the amendments as agreed, that's what they are, just straightening up the kaitahu ngaitahu thing. There's going to be some better wording around affordability, and then if not applicable, then strike out, perhaps just after that in the published fees and charges. Yeah. Okay. So I'll take us back folks to page 21 with those amendments in thought, before I move and ask my deputy mayor to second this, just want to thank the staff for the work that's gone into this. These things come out as 100-page documents or whatever it is, but the amount of work and detail and effort that goes into creating a document like this to draw up a budget, you know, if people consider looking at their household budget and multiply that by something short of infinity, it's what you're dealing with here with the number of moving parts that an organisation like this has. So sincere thanks on behalf of the council and the community to all the staff involved. Obviously you two at the head of the table, but there's lots underneath you. Please pass on our thanks and congratulations to them for getting this plan over the line, and particularly in the environment of constant change that we're in. And with that, unless there's any further questions,
I had
Nigel.
a comment really, doesn't speak the motion, but on page 43, I think,
43 was it?
what can you expect from us for water? And it says the percentage of real water loss from the network reticulation system, leaks, metering and accuracies. Our current target of real losses from the network reticulation system is less than 30% of the water produced. And I would just as a question in my mind to go, that maybe staff could note to go back, 30% sounds like an awful low bar to be aiming at. So that's a question to go back to someone. And similarly on page 50, where there's also a similar chart about how do we measure success for wastewater. I'm wondering whether we should have it as one of the measurements of success that we measure the percentage of stormwater that just discharges through the wastewater system. So at the moment we have nothing that refers to that. So that's just a question to go back to staff really, because that's an absolutely critical measurement, which I think is going to become quite important.
If that was to be a discussion, it would be for putting in the LTP, not into this. Yeah, because we don't know.
As I read, it was just looking at this sort of raised question in my mind. So where it goes back to, I'm not sure, but
I think it's quite valid.
Certainly we can raise this with the water team through the LTP. There is some new measures coming in from the DIA as well. So we can put that in the LTP process.
particularly around the wastewater, because to me there are two parts to it. One, we should be measuring it if it's possible to, you know, and second, it raises the question of monitoring and sanctions around stormwater going into the wastewater system. Which again is obviously OGP, but
I think as chair of Three Waters closing the loop in the other direction, you should take it up with.
I intend. It's really just trying to feed it back so it doesn't get lost.
Valid points, thank you. All right, with those points in mind and no further questions or comments, in that case, I'm going to move the recommendations on page 21 as we've amended them at B and K. So I'm moving A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. And I'll ask Neil to second.
Second that, your worship.
Thank you.
Endorse your comments.
Any further questions before we move on, folks? In that case, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Once again, thanks to staff. I think it's very good now after heavy lifting like that we're going to have something important, but fun, I think is the right word. Welcome, Paula, the Eden Hoare collection, some activity movement in this wonderful space.
Kia ora, thank
Kia ora,
you.
welcome.
Yes. Somewhat of a contrast to what you've just been discussing. So I did want to come and talk with council today about a couple of updates. We have one, the most significant one, of 3 garments that have been gifted to the collection. So I wanted to tell the council the story behind these garments, so to give some understanding as to why they are so special to the collection. So strictly speaking, the Eden Hoare Central Otago collection is on my phone. It's related to Ian, the man, and the garments he collected during his time. These particular garments align with the story of Eden, and I'll explain why that is. And so these garments were purchased by from Thomas Estate and offered as a gift to the collection. So they do have a value in themselves. So the gift is very generous and it's of no cost to the council, but they have in the collection. So in the collections policy, while this is a finite collection, there is justification to amass new garments if they have provenance with producing a duplication opportunity. So the provenance around these garments are that they are exceptional New Zealand designers that these garments represent, and they are of the quality and standard that Eden was collecting at that time. Eden had a terrific eye for garments, so he didn't just get anything, he had really high quality stuff. The other thing is that the era fits and the design fits, and they were likely to have been purchased by Eden or Alma because that's what he was doing at that time. And the other thing too is they represent this precious part of the Eden central target story, which is Alma's story. So if I can just take a step back and talk about Alma and how she relates to Eden. So Alma was training as a nurse in Congo when she answered an ad that Eden posted in a paper for a land girl. So Eden was by himself and he needed someone to look after the house and work on the land, and she did both of that. She worked really hard on the land. She spent hours on the tractors, cultivating, developing land, and she developed the garden, talked Eden into developing a garden around the house, which we learned lots more about them. But in 50 years when he used to post garden parties and all that. But the story goes that they purchased over 100 roses from the farm nursery and planted them and turned it back into a beautiful garden with a fountain and peacocks and all sorts of things. So while Alma was with Eden, she got to meet through Eden Joe Brown, John Grinnell, and a number of other entertainers that Eden rubbed shoulders with. And so she became exhibited fashion and followed and started to follow fashion in her own right. So she trained with Margaret Ferry at Energy Walk, Morning School, and story goes that she'd be changing tyres on a Friday night in the snow on the pink roof on her way to and from her pumpkin plant. And so she, and as you can see, Eden was really good to Alma, and family and friends all say that Eden was really great to Alma. Alma absolutely enjoyed the time with deeply, and Eden took her to a number of events, and you can see she was always well attired. And Eden took great pains to get her garments. He bought her a gown for the 21st, and that what the story goes, led him into this passion for fashion. So he went from buying garments for Alma to purchasing them in his own right. And he also took Alma overseas to the States in Calgary, and they travelled around together and touring some overseas. So she had a terrific time with Eden. And she was with him for about 12 to 13 years. So it's a pivotal time in the Eden Central Target story to start that connection. So when she left, Alma then worked for the Vanguard Annual Motors in Dunedin and looked after him, and then went through to Dundalk in Christchurch and spent many years working up there. And she was there right through till the dementia got the better of her family. Brought her back to where they were, and she spent the rest of her days in a home. In 2017, Dr. Jane Marthas and Julie Howden went and visited Alma in Christchurch when she was working for Jim, and they looked through. She had a number of garments that she'd held on to. She treasured her fashion, and she'd held on to a number of garments, and so they had a chance to have a look through and see what she had. So that was the last time we caught up with Alma until we went to her funeral. So she's buried in Millisbet, so she's a real went back. And when we were doing, Jane and Renelle caught up with her sister and needs to do an oral history, and it's really a lot more about the collection, and at that stage they had Alma's estate, which led to this opportunity. So, that was all the service and, yeah, beautiful lady, highly regarded, very generous, works all her life, never married, fascinating lady. Wayne. So before we put the garments into the collection, Will Nelson and Insurance Central Target helped us take some shots of the garments so we could see them before they yeah, put into boxes and into storage. So these are the three garments that we've got. First one here is a Townsend original blank. It's an evening wear garment. Beautifully designed. The designer, he used to be a pattern maker for LJ, who, according to Jane, was the only label that could make female garments in New Zealand, so the lady was regarded. So these photos were taken at Lauderdale. This garment here is Kevin McCann. Kevin McCann is really well represented in Eden's collection. He had a friendship with Kevin and got to know him through Benson and Hedges because he was a leading designer, you know, and so he wrote a number of his. In the collection, this is just another example of his amazing use of sequins and his, those trousers are quite amazing and yeah, quite a design. The third garment is a Colin Cole. So this is beautifully woven garment. You could wear it today, not in the door. Yeah, it's stunning. And so he's a very well known. So there are three garments. And just quickly update to other things. Our website's obviously up and running, and we're now posting on that periodically. That's where we try to keep our updates. Things that are coming and coming. We also have an Instagram page that we feed periodically. We have a number of the photo exhibitions that we've had running to keep that local touch. Happened here this month, and it went around at the sort of similar points to last summer. Wait, hit the name button. So top shot is over. Below that was in Naseby. This top one's McNulty House. Bottom one, Weirbury and Woolshed. Top one here, this we did the photos out of region to Wanaka in the Aspiring Retirement Village. That's because there is a family member of Pat Hewitt who was there, so it's a connection here in multiple family. This Pat is a woman who was who was a designer based in Alexandra. So she's got a lot of family here, and we had her garments in the collection. And the bottom one is in Fable Hotel in Dunedin, and that was around ID fashion, and some of the photos we down there to link in as a touch point. And we also have the photos in the Queenstown Airport as part of the TCO Broader Flavour. And on Monday, Jen just hung the photos in Dunedin Airport, and I'll be there for the next 3 months. And we hope to get lots of sales. Yeah, so that is us really. Again, other things that we're moving on with, the films on a slow burn, we've got two really clever men in our steering group who are driving that and using their contacts to push that forward. Our focus is on a book to try and see if we can move that forward. And we also, a very big focus of us is developing a revenue strategy so that we can fund some of our aspirational dreams.
Thank you. Thank you, Paula. Questions, councillors? Clement?
Lovely photos. Yeah, Will's done a good job with our local modelling talent as well.
Thank you.
No, they're not in the menu to implied.
Very nice. That's good, well done.
Right. Thank you. I'll move that we receive the report, but I might add to that a B, which is that the council thanks the people the anonymous donors who have added to our collection through their largesse. So just a note of thanks to the donors of those garments. So I'll move those two things. Someone second them. Tamer, all those in favour?
Aye.
Aye, against, carried. Thank you, Paula. Film friendly policy now on page 275. Welcome, Nick.
Morning.
Floor's yours, Nick.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, so you've got a report and a policy, and obviously it's, the recommendation is around receiving the report and then obviously adopting the film friendly policy, for an additional 3 years. And the report, I guess, just notes that, the policy was last updated in 2018. And as an organisation, we've actually had a film friendly policy since 2000. And that came out of a partnership document that Council signed back in 2008 with Film New Zealand. And the intent is obviously to promote that partnership, and also the policy is to promote Central Otago as a preferred destination for filming. And filming could be a movie, it could be a television commercial, it could be a TV documentary or series. So in the report, we also note the sort of wider benefit. It's not just the economic benefit, but it also filming does bring that sort of cultural and social side in terms of documenting our life and our place. And I guess in terms of the feeling that I get from the industry, Central Otago is very well held in high regard as a place to film, not just because of our people and our stunning landscapes, it is because that council and the community do support the industry to film in the district. And that obviously filming's been a little bit quiet over the COVID period, and coming out of that, especially violence, production sort of start to realise, I guess, that New Zealand is open for business again, and it's a bit of a pipeline there. So as part of the renewal process, when we circulated the current document, the current policy around sort of the roading, property, planning teams of council, their feedback, there were some minor changes made to the grammar, brought it up to date with the current formatting. But also on page 2 of the policy, we did try and make it a bit clearer in terms of it points out that there are certain activities that would require consenting, and there's some activities that may require consenting as well, to sort of highlight that. And since this policy has gone out, there's been some other feedback that's come in that I'd hopefully like to incorporate in the final policy today. So that is on page 2 or 280 of your document. Down the bottom, you've got activities that require a consent or permit. You've got the third bullet point there, which is council administered facilities and reserves. I'd like to change that to council owned or administered facilities, reserved, or land that can be used for filming purpose, and to strike the rest of that line. The rest of that, strike that next 2 sentences. In those next 2 sentences, it says in most instances, no or minimal charge, and that can just kind of be a little bit confusing to some. And so by removing that, essentially we ensure that any charges are as per our fees and policies schedule. And I guess anyone filming can make sure and decide for themselves whether that is a minimal charge or not. But also to provide clarity to our community that someone filming is not getting a best deal than maybe a community group that wanted to use a council asset. So.
So everyone clear on that change and the reasons behind it? Thank you.
I just wanted to point out that the film industry have not been getting a better deal. It's just been it's always been as per the best charges.
All right. Questions, councillors?
I'll move it.
You'll move it with B having as amended added to the end of it? Thank you. Stu's moved it. Somebody seconded it. Thank you, Sally.
Just to comment on that, when you look at the influx of capital of good people with the power of the dollars on the wee community, and it took a lot of people into the workforce that would otherwise not be working,
Yeah,
and it was great.
yep, and I think it's, I think council has an approach to it as well, in terms of making sure that we were engaging with those partners, people that wanted to film, and making sure we got good outcomes where the filming didn't come in over the top of existing industries. And it's, upset how the tourism, the cyclists would have been needing accommodation over that same period to get a good outcome for it.
Yeah, very well. Yeah, there's a lot of people involved in it.
All right, we've got a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thanks, Nick. Keep up the great work in that space. Page 296, our financial report for the period ending 30 April. Susan, welcome back.
Donna, with you today. We are in the middle of our interim audit, so feeling we got a short straw dealing with the auditors.
It's nice to know dealing with the council isn't the short straw.
I can't imagine dealing with auditors as a short straw, surely.
Susan, floor's yours.
Look, I'll take the report as being read. You will understand that a lot of this commentary is consistent with previous months. And it is, there is a lag, obviously, so this is the results of April. So some things have actually happened, like the cemetery road sales are coming through now, so take questions.
Yeah, pretty much. Councillors, questions, comments? Wow, this definitely isn't a short straw.
I think, probably the only one that I would draw your attention to is in the water services physical contract. We're just working through, some issues in there, and it's around, replacement of water meters and, some issues in that area. And when you think back, they, we've had them in for 10 years now.
And the rest.
Yeah, so we are getting probably some, we are looking at probably the need to transfer some of that cost from maintenance to capital because it's actually free. So we receive this next day.
No questions, team?
Yeah, I just got,
Thank you, Neil.
the general one really is saying that that's at the end of April and we're fast now approaching the end of June. So we're 2 months down the track, heading towards the end of the financial year. There's nothing in here that struck me as a red flag heading towards year end, which is the most important thing in terms of what's there, what we know. The timing's coming good on some things, money's coming through. Nothing's happened since then that says 30 June is not looking good for the following reasons. That to me is the most important thing, and if there is, then yes,
All right, somebody want to move the report they received?
I could do that.
Thank you, Neil. Somebody second that. Thank you, Ian. Any further discussion? All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, Susan. You get to go back to the auditors now?
Yep.
I want some more questions.
Right, our next report relates to the hearings panel. That's your report, Wayne.
Yep. So just looking to appoint a further member for the hearings panel. I guess for availability reasons, for using non-RMA hearings at this stage. So you're just seeing if you want to have a fourth member for those extra options.
Neil, as head of the hearings panel, do you want to comment?
Yes, the hearings panel, while doing RMA hearings, is required to have certain qualifications and skill sets. There are other hearings we do, particularly dog control is the one that comes to mind, where you don't need to be have any qualification, that sounds bad. You don't require, not required to have a making good decisions qualification for that. Yeah, accreditation, yeah. And then sometimes the situation could be, and it has happened in dogs in particular, where the panel's already been part of an RMA process that might go to a dog control process, and you've got to be really careful about perceived conflicts and those sort of things. So just provides an extra person as well. So I think it's just a good time to do that. And there's a council that's interested in that sort of stuff and got the right background for it, so it makes good sense to have the option.
With discussions, Tracy will be doing the course for RMA, so it seems sense that you get in on the ground floor, and Tracy's already willing to do that. So unless anyone else is wanting to do it, I'm happy to add Tracy's name to instead of a councillor, to nominate Tracy Patterson to be the person. Any further discussions? Someone want to second that? Tame will second that.
I thought the mentor you would have been the one to second that.
Sorry, Stu.
I'll be a mentor.
I advise, but I think.
Tame's on, I'm sorry. Tame's ready to withdraw. So you can second that. And I'll give you some advice on dogs as well if you want. Need help with your hearing. I'd give it a go or not.
He does
Pretty good on
this
that.
hearing, don't worry about that. Any further discussion? All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. Thank you very much.
Just for your lookout.
This brings us through to my report on page 310. I've made comment there on the new CEO that was settled some time ago. Looking forward to welcoming Peter on the 11th of September. It was an outstanding range of applicants for the position, a very hard decision to make. Louise and I travelled to the LGNZ sector meeting, which was followed by a rural and provincial meeting. It was in late May, and we've got the conference in July. So LGNZ was trying to get everyone together. The conference is the only time in a non-election year that everyone gets together. So we're trying to create something else. Timing put it probably a bit close to the actual full conference, but nonetheless, we all got together. We heard from National's Nicola Willis, Minister of Local Government Kieran McAnulty, lively panel discussion on the voting age lowering to 16, and it used Slido. I really love Slido. It allowed people to put their comments up from the floor, and joyously you could put them up anonymously, which caused quite a riot. But it was useful and illuminating. It allowed, rather, because panel discussions, you're only hearing from a few talking heads on the stage. This gave everyone a crack without, could we say, the usual suspects getting up and dominating with what their thoughts were. So I just think it was great. Rural and provincial, the next day, traversed transport issues and problems with Waka Kotahi, managed retreat and climate change resilience. Had a great time up in Ranfurly emceeing the opening of the John Street Playground. It was awfully cold, but a great turnout. Great to see former Maniatoto Community Board member Sue Umbers getting to cut the ribbon, and just a great effort by the community to get the playground it wanted, and huge credit to the staff who led it and the community who drove it. And it was just great. Wasn't it, Stu, to watch those Horta kids go racing to be their first official person on the slide and so forth?
Did Stu win?
No.
Was Stu first?
Stu was very mature.
Yeah, I stayed back.
Well, you did.
I had injuries lately and I didn't want to be seeing everyone on the playground.
And just noting, kudos to Roxburgh. Linda and I spent the Queen's birthday weekend in Catlins and stopped off in Roxburgh on the Monday afternoon, and it was just absolutely humming with shops that were open and people travelling both directions that were taking advantage of the shops being open. It's all about putting your bait in the water when the whitebait are running. Well, that's a mixed analogy because you don't use bait for whitebait. I know that's due, but it is about, you know, being available when people are travelling, and it was just something that came to mind today that I mentioned to Nick. We're going to have a huge number of people travelling through this district in the not too distant future as they go to a Women's World Football Cup game in Dunedin and then come inland for a bit of a break before carrying on to other places. So we're going to have the influx there. There are some other things there. Most of us attended the Otako Marina visit and Otago Museum visit. That went really well. 1st of June had his own meeting with then Transport Minister Wood. Turns out to be a bit of a waste of time. Visited the site visit to the Half Mile site on the 16th of May. That bit of land up there, if you, I don't know, other people have gone up and had a look at it. It's an amazing bit of land when you literally can see it. You couldn't see the forest for the trees earlier on, and I think the community's going to find once it's sorted out great use for it, particularly in the space of looking at the Aurora, because it faces south, and that was what it used to be used for. Your light of the town's blocked out behind you, but it's very proximate to Alexandra to get that magnificent southern view. So pleased to see that going so very well, and credit to the people who are doing it. Not much else. So the only other thing I will touch on was I attended last night, having angst all day over it and taken advice from a number of people on the StockCo governance meeting that was held in the Lowburn Hall. I tend to, as mayor, go to big events that are happening in the district, and that had engendered a lot of interest, so I thought I would go along and see what it was all about, although I had looked at some videos beforehand that gave a fair indication of what it was all about. I think it was probably between 25 and 30 people attended, and there was probably around about 15 people outside, respectfully, with placards singing Waiata. It was a very Central Otago, respectful thing to watch as people came in. There was no argy-bargy. There was a couple of respectful exchanges of views. It was very good. The meeting itself went for quite a period of time, apparently. I walked out after 20 minutes when I heard that our nation is at war with 1,000 elite Maori. I couldn't really sit in that church of a poison mind for any longer. But yeah, I was there. And yeah, whether I was grateful to be there or not is an entirely other question. So that's my report. If anyone has any questions, happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Neil. Stu, some discussion.
Is people coming down before he starts his job for a weekend or to meet the staff?
He was down, he and his wife were down 2 weekends ago, and I had my wife and I had coffee with them, looking at houses. And there is a planned visit in August where he'll get to meet the LT and look around. So yeah, cool. Yeah. There was a 3-month requirement to work his contract out, which was invoked by his current council employer. So he's getting here as soon as he realistically can, and he's very keen. Even though when we did meet, him and his wife and Clyde, we found each other as we walked out of the fog. It wasn't the greatest introduction, but they were still enthusiastic.
I've got the skill set to find you in the fog, I'm thinking. Especially if you had your hat on.
That's right. Nothing else? You've got to move her in a second. Oh, there was one other thing. Of course, Future for Local Government. The report came out for that last week, and Tony, you've been leading that, so I think I'll just give you an opportunity to perhaps comment on your thoughts on it in this juncture.
Yep, I think we've had a bit of a discussion already around the table, and I guess it's not a consultation as such. There's no requirement for us to put anything together to go back. There's, I guess, some concerns around what happens next, recognising where we are in the national election cycle, but there are also some opportunities for us to start conversations amongst ourselves, amongst other councils, and look at what, if any, changes we might like to make and how those could be driven from within, which I think is a reasonably exciting opportunity for us to be a little bit more in control of our own destiny. Be quite nice. So yeah, watch this space. Yeah, thank you.
All right. With that, we're going to move in a second. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thanks so much. Page 312 is the governance report, which includes Otago Museum report to contributing local authorities, the business curbside collection survey letter, council status update. Was there anything amongst those anybody wanted to comment on? I'm just quickly taking myself through. Neil, did you have something?
Oh, yeah, page 357 in the status reports. We've been considering since May 19 the review of the NZS 4404, and I know there's a lot of good reasons, but really 4 years just about just seems.
You need to keep considering it because it
and I know there's some reasons why it's not happened, but you've got to think, well, actually, you know, it's a, what are we using, the 2010 addendum, or is it older than that even? Just wonder if there's some way of trying to prioritise that or move it forward or do something with it. Otherwise, it just seems to be like it makes no odds.
What are your thoughts, Louise?
Yes, we'd love to move it forward, and there has been some reasons why not.
Yep, I'm not
And obviously that space is our infrastructure team and our planners, and we understand the resourcing challenges there, and we have got a bit of an internal realignment as well. And prior to that, the focus on infrastructure was probably more around 3 years. So it's around priorities and resourcing, but we are definitely conscious of it. I would also make the point that, as you know, we have standards that is meeting, and it's not like we're without standard, but we are definitely conscious of that, and we'll do our best to move it forward.
Yeah, so if you're definitely conscious of it, does the governance table need to be conscious of it? With it remaining in these?
Well, it is what it is, and it comes through in the RMA space. And it's like a lot of those things. You've got a district plan that we get accused of being tens of thousands of years out of date. This sort of thing, the same sort of thing comes through, and you go, it's not a good look. There's good reason and logic why it's like that, but just sometimes it's 13 years old. It's 4 years since we said to review it. If we can't find a way to make it happen, then
Just accept that.
yeah, I know. It just seems to must be another way of skinning the cat.
There's this.
Probably someone else.
There's a reason it's not happening, it's a resource problem.
And that we also have a standard that is functioning. We don't have any big red flags about the existing standard. So it is around prioritising workload.
Yeah, thank you.
And the back of that perform and resource and challenge. But can I make a suggestion that I will have a chat to the infrastructure manager and see if we can give a realistic time that we might get to this.
It's probably better than no change, or no action type thing. Yeah, because that's probably.
Well, it is these reports serving their purpose, isn't it? Because we did a checkpoint now with that.
And my observation is not as a criticism of anything. I understand exactly why.
Yeah.
But can we do something? Can governments do something to make it better?
The only other thing I'd add is page 375, where we talk about the council mark program that's on hold until LGNZ finalise what they're doing. Just noting that I'll be interested to get the new CEO's take on it, because Upper Hutt City Council undertook the program in 2018, which is either just before or just after he arrived there. So that's going to add a different perspective to our discussions on that, which will happen next. Alrighty, so we just received those on page 312. Somebody want to move that? Thanks, Sarah. Seconded Sally. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Community board minutes on 385 onwards. Any comments on any of that? In which case Tracy can move them and Stu can second them because he nodded. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. And 403, the date of our next meeting is the 19th of July. Thank you very much. We're going to move.
I'll note at that meeting, Your Worship, that I'll be absent.
You'll be absent.
Calgary.
He's going to go and look at those sprocks over in Calgary.
Oh, I think that's a great idea, Neil. We're now going to have a resolution to exclude the public for the reasons given on pages 404 and 405. Thanks to the media who have been in attendance today. Great to have you here. Also move that we resolve to go non-public. Stu seconded that. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. We'll just have a wee break while that it's organised. Thank you, everyone.
Yes.